You know, if the Founding Fathers could see the United States now, there'd be a hell of a Beyblade episode running in the graves below. Now, ladies and gentlemen, why the fuck would I be saying that? Let's get started with the actual truth of the situation. Now, I know that there's a big pandemic going on in the world. Relax, Susan! I'm not saying the word, okay? Calm down. There is actually a big thing going under the radar that is just slowly sneaking by because of this mass pandemic in the world. Now, for those people who don't understand what's going on, the Ernit Act is something that you should be watching out for if you're United States citizens. The rest of the world can't really do anything but you all. So what is the Ernit Act? Okay, so the Ernit Act is effectively an act that allows the United States to basically kill forms of encryption, end-to-end encryption, and various other technologies so that they can facilitate the fight against trafficking of young individuals. Now, I'm not here to make light of that situation. It's a real crime out there. But before we continue, let me talk about how criminals work, okay? When you're dealing with high-end organizations, cartels, you know, big syndicates, we're talking about people that have the money to hire Navy SEALs for security. So you do understand that when you pay somebody 6 times the amount they would earn in the regular field, they're probably going to line up for you. There's a lot of people that would stick to their morals, but there's a lot of people out there that would say, wow, I'm making 6 times the amount of money I could make anywhere else. If I'm going to risk my life, might as well go to them. And you know what? Alongside those security professionals also come down to doctors and, even more importantly, computer engineers. Ladies and gentlemen, we've done deep web browsing. We looked at the onion relay. We've looked at various messaging applications that you can use out on the internet. A lot of this stuff is actually open source, meaning that any engineer can grab the source files, compile them, build them, and modify them to their heart's content, meaning that if you really wanted to, you could make your own version of an internet. You could make your own version of the onion relay. You could make your own internet out in the world running off of botnets. So you could actually have your own email servers, messaging servers, data servers without the government peeking into them. You know, wiretapping doesn't really work on these organizations when they have the money and resources to create their own wire. Now, when the government targets end-to-end encryption for me and you, the average person, these people that they're trying to save the children from go ahead and do what they want anyways because they have the money and resources to do this stuff en masse. Okay, that's what it is. So ultimately, when the government targets us, it's for the nefarious purposes of the governments and not to help out children. Now, what is end-to-end encryption? Well, in a very simple term, think of it like this. When you're running a program like WhatsApp, which uses end-to-end communications, the two phones, let's say you're communicating with your friend, phone A and phone B, these two phones create a key that is locally stored on their own devices. Now, when you type a message like, "Hi, how are you?" and send it to your friend, the moment you hit send, your phone keys will be used to encrypt that message and send it as a data packet over the internet. Then the data packet is downloaded to your friends, and then your friends' keys will be used to basically decrypt your message. Now, at this point, because you guys locally store those keys, end-to-end encryption is what we call it. If a hacker was to grab the data packet out of the air, they would look at that encrypted data and say, wow, this is a garbled chunk of letters. I wish I had the decryption keys, but you know, maybe I could sit around and hack this all I want, but it's going to take a sweet time. Now, if that data was left unencrypted, then the hacker could grab the data packet and say, wow, they're saying, hi, how are you? And they can do that for every data packet you send between each other, basically a wiretap. This is where end-to-end encryption kicks in. Companies like Apple, WhatsApp, Facebook, Microsoft, Google thrive on end-to-end encryption. These people don't need to spy on you. At the end of the day, they need to make money. And when you want to make money, you have to pass on something like, hey, we can secure your data and nobody will be able to peek into it, not even us. And that's how they bill it to their clients. They're not in the business of spying on citizens. They're more in the business of making money. Is there you trust me, the fact that you use public social networks anyways to share your life story is more than enough information for a lot of these organizations out there. But also, this protects them from the government as well. Let's say something happens and the government goes to Apple to subpoena records. Apple can easily say, look, our devices are end-to-end. We don't even have the keys for it. We're just as screwed as you are. And that basically stops the situation right there. With a bill like this, Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, any US tech company that deals with end-to-end encryption will be required legally to have some form of backdoor into the system. Now, what's scary about having a backdoor into the system is, let's say that you're not doing anything wrong, and the government's woefully peeking into all of your life's affairs, and you're okay with that. Are you okay with there being a legal backdoor when there are tons of cyber attacks in the world every single day? What if North Korea decides, or any organization decides to hijack your email messages? You may not worry about it so much, but what if they start hijacking your personal tales? What if a criminal hijacks your medical records and tries to blackmail you with it? Do you understand that's a reality you're looking at into the future when you have legal, like, fucking wiretaps, legal backdoors created? I'm not saying backdoors do not exist already. Trust me, they do, but they exist illegally. But when you give the government the legal right to do it, congratulations, all of your crying is thrown out the door. They don't fucking care. It's part of the world now. If a breach happens, people get slapped on the wrist and they walk away. You really don't have any power once this passes through in regards of encrypting your own data. Now, even if the government doesn't scan every single message you read, no matter what, machine learning will be used to filter all the messages you send to a big cloud system that will immediately start profiling you as like you're in the world of fucking Deus Ex. You know, I use that game a lot, but it's crazy how it's predicted 20 years of the world's future and even beyond just through its insightfulness in a way. Now, in this case, I must say that if this passes all the way through, your signals, your messages are all open game for these systems, which at this point is where I think of the solution. The right solution is for people who live in the United States to get on board and communicate with their governments and say, hey, look, let's not be tyrannical. Look, the US government likes to blame China for letting companies like Huawei let the state peek into its data. And you know, that very well might just be true. But let's not forget the fact that the US also had the PRISM system, probably still has the PRISM system. It's fucking hypocrisy all around. It's why I mentioned the Founding Fathers earlier. You know, I like the United States, and it's the only country where you can make videos like this and actually fight against a tyrannical regime. But when the regime is turning this tyrannical, it's time to take matters into our own hands, and into our own hands legally. It's where you, the viewer, has to communicate to your government if you live in the United States and get it going, get the process started to prevent this bill from passing through, because slowly, day by day, it's sneaking its way through. Once it's snuck through, because you've got this pandemic above us, then you have to realize once it passes through because of it, once the prying eyes have been taken away, then you've lost your rights to begin with. Now, going in further, it leads me to another solution. Let's say this passes through and we live in this tyrannical world. Well, it's pretty much the reason why I switched to Linux in the first place, or many of these open source technologies. You know, can you trust even your operating system after that? You know, end-to-end encryption is just one pillar. What if they get to a point where it's to your operating system and down to that level? What if tomorrow, or the month after, or the year after, Windows is targeted by the US government to have a legal backdoor for scanning all of your computer data? Same goes for Mac OS. These are both US companies. They both are subject to US law. And it's this point where I have started to use Linux, and I'm actually really happy with mainly using Linux, because at least Linux is a completely open source solution, and it's run by programmers around the world, around the globe, to actually maintain and run this operating system. It is constantly combed and looked through for the slightest exploits, and when it does come with an exploit, it's maintained and it's given at least public knowledge. It's given transparency, and it gets relatively fixed within a quick time. You know, there's nothing if not transparency when it comes to this open platform, and it's why I use it primarily, because look, if these US institutions are compromised, then we can only rely on the world of the open source and programmers around the world fighting against technologies like this to keep us truly secure. And it's beyond just Linux. If you lose this end-to-end encryption, then we're going to have to start building our own end-to-end encryption softwares and deploying that ourselves and containing it ourselves without these big US tech companies to do it for us. Because if this bill passes, that will be the only way you can maintain your safety and your privacy. And you know, I get a lot of people say, I don't have anything to hide. Look, I get it. I understand. I don't have anything to hide either. I'm just a chubby Indian guy on the internet. But at the same time, you know, do you really want your government prying into your private data all the time? Do you really want to live in that world? Ask yourself that question. And if you are okay with it, then you know what? Do what you want. Play some Fortnite, play Warzone, whatever the fuck you feel like doing, or watch a movie. I don't care. At that point, if you're okay with it, then I guess I'm okay with you being okay with it. But if you feel a little uneasy at the fact that the government can, anytime they want, peek into your data, then it's time for you to stand up and raise some concern with your government and tell them, hey, listen, keep this shit at bay. It's not okay, and it never will be okay. This is right now a tyrannical government sinking its hooks into the future. It's trying to get into you right now, using children as a mechanism to get you to believe it's bullshit. This isn't about the kids. This isn't about stopping trafficking, because if the government really wanted to stop trafficking, they could do a much better job at it than they are right now. And this is not the way to do it. This is a way to simply pass a law that, like most government surveillance laws, will be used to primarily target the public rather than the actual criminals beyond. Look, I get that there's some good glory stories that come out of this, but for the most part, it's used for incredibly nefarious purposes. There are people who whistleblow this shit all the time, and they always have the same stories about government surveillance. It is a fucked up industry, and it is a fucked up place to work in, and it fucks people up who do it for a living anyways. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. This is me, Mutahar, and this has been the Ernit Act. And if you let it pass, then let it be known you literally allowed your rights to be eroded within a fraction of a second. This is me, Mutahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.